What's going on YouTube? Warstorm here, coming at you guys with another video today. Today I'll be talking about the new TCG ban list. We finally received our updated TCG list. So now we're actually going to be talking about this a little bit, and I'm putting off the Mech Knight deck profile I was working on for you guys. I was going to show you guys Mech Knights and what I'm working on, but the new ban list kind of takes precedence over anything else, so we'll be uploading that later. Also, Playable Magician update will be coming. I'm just more waiting to see kind of where Electromite settles, because I do want to build the deck, but again, Electromite being, depending on what the price of the card is, it may not, maybe just slightly different list. I may do it online, who knows. But anyways, we're going to get to the ban list. So I actually think this is a really solid list. I've already looked at it, and despite it hitting two of the decks I'm playing right now, but I think it's a pretty solid list. So first off, we have Blackwing Gofu, the Vague Shadow. This kind of tells me that Needle Fiber is likely to come out later this year. Needle Fiber has some pretty nutty interactions with Gofu, and Gofu is still a really strong card, but with Needle Fiber, it kind of breaks it wide open. It turns it from a 1-card Link 3 to a 1-card Link 4. That's not something I think Konami wants running around, and it really makes sense to ban Gofu if we are going to get Needle Fiber. Why take chances? The Dandelion being banned, again, this is kind of preemptively hitting Plant FTK. Mathematician into Dandelion enables an entire FTK on its own with the new Aeromage Link Monster. So this just makes sense. If we're going to get Jasmine and Sharobini later this year, why not just hit it now before it becomes a problem? Double Iris Magician is a really, really strong hit. Now, there's a couple problems I can see why it's banned, because it's not once per turn. It searches the Pendulum Grass, which allow the magicians to establish really, really good boards, and on top of that, you can search it with Duelist Alliance. So with those factors, I can see why they chose to hit this particular card in the deck. It doesn't hurt the consistency too much, because I'd rather see something like this hit than see something like Wisdom Eye hit. So it makes sense. Level Leader being banned is something I've been calling for a very, very, very long time. And it's because we're getting Link Rebo, and at some point later this year, it's more than likely Europe will have it as well. Banning Level Leader now only makes sense because it's basically infinite free Link fodder, and we really don't want that. Need that at anything above 0. And it's a card that just encourages a lot of really dumb interactions. Maxi, I'm gonna miss Maxi. Maxi, I feel like, was fine at 1. I liked it at 1. It's perfect at 1 in my opinion. But I understand. It's a card that creates a lot of I like the card, and then it makes the opponent think before they extend. It is not Vanity is Emptiness, like a lot of people say, but the card is still really powerful, and it needs to be at 0 or 3, but I do think it was fine where it was. Joker, I understand Joker going from 3 to 0. It makes sense because you do have the Magician Exceed monster that searches it. So if you put it to 1, it just means people are going to make Time Star to search it, and it still can be an issue because it is searchable. So I understand, and it's a card that probably shouldn't get anything above 1 because it's just the volume of cards that this thing searches are just nuts. So yeah, it makes sense. I don't think there's any spells or traps banned, but this basically these ban section puts magicians, hinders the deck, the consistency quite a bit, and hits a few necessary cards. I feel like in general these are good bans for the most part. And then Towers coming back. It makes sense, although it's really strange to bring Towers off the list and leave Scout limited. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But Towers I feel like nowadays, while people have cut cards like Utopia the Lightning, I don't feel like Towers is really that huge of a threat anymore. While I disagree with the whole Kaijus exist argument, I feel like most decks can power up big enough to get over something like Towers. I really don't think it's the issue it was back, in Towers Turbo days, and it can come back up to 1 and fine. Grinder Golem, again, it's the same thing with Gofu. It's more than likely Konami hitting it preemptively because we're getting Security Dragon later this year. They saw what the card did in the OCG, and they're just preemptively getting rid of it before it becomes a problem. I'd rather have them do that than leave it at 3. Damage Juggler, it's an interesting card. I'm really happy to see Damage Juggler come back to 1. It is still really powerful with Brilliant Fusion because you can search Hat Tricker with it. And I still feel it's not a bad card in hand either. It's a very good hand drop as well. So I feel like 1 is fine. for Damage Juggler. I just think 1 is perfect. Like, you don't really want it at multiples, I think, because it can get a little crazy. But at 1, it's fine, and I feel like it's good. It's really good to see the card back. Then Firewall Dragon has been placed at 1. Probably the proper place for Firewall. Firewall just enables too many loops on its own. It was not going to get banned because it is an anime protagonist card. But I understand it needs to be at 1. 1 is the proper place for Firewall Dragon, and I just laughed that Kanahaka is still at 1. Why, Konami? Then Monster Reborn, finally being reborn off the ban list. Honestly, I don't understand. If we have Soul Charge at 1, we should have Monster Reborn at 1. I understand Monster Reborn is a really sacky, quote-unquote sacky card and can special summon from both players' graveyards. It's unlike, and Soul Charge does have a pretty set amount of restrictions on it. But I feel like in a format where we have Soul Charge, we should be able to have Monster Reborn just limited, placed at 1. I think it's fine. Then Spiral Resort. This is interesting. I didn't think they would limit Resort because it is a field spell. Konami in the TCG hasn't really hit the field spell engine outside of limiting set rotation, which was limited because it created the locks. And this basically kills Spyrals because now the deck is so Glass Cannon, it's really not very playable. And this also hinders Master Plan's effectiveness because unless you can get to a double Helix without accessing your Resort, it's going to make the +2 a lot more consistent, but the hit does make sense, and it does effectively neuter the deck to the point where you can't really play it anymore at a big event. Then Solemn Judgment coming up to 1. This is crazy. But much like Monster Reborn, I feel like 1 is the proper place for this card. I don't feel like it's been banned for a very long time, and I feel like it's fine and yes, we do have the new Counter Fairy support, but again, we also got Hey True Nade in the last set, so it's a good card to have back. I feel like it's good always to have a good amount of generic cards in the game. There's no semi-limits on this list, but unlimited. Morale Tech is back up to 3. Good place for it to be. It's interruption on your opponent's turn, but at the same time, most of the time nowadays, you'd probably rather be scything your opponent. And it doesn't target, so it's kind of nice to have a little bit of more non-target removal. That's pretty easy to access, is always nice. BLS, good to see it back at 3, but I don't really think it's going to do too much. Konami finally decided to pump Card Trooper up from 2 to 3 because I guess they really finally decided Troop Dupe Scoop was no longer relevant. Thunder King Raiho, really good card, really anti-meta card, and I think it's pretty strong. But Brionek, again, I don't think anyone's really going to play through. Brain Control, errated. Elsinore Fusion, it's really good to see it back, but again, Construct is still banned. Future Fusion, no, it's not really that good anyways. Mind Control. Now, this might matter. The reason I think this card matters is because we are in Link era. And with Link monsters, you can steal them with Mind Control and then use them to Link climb. Now, granted, Decode Talker can negate this, but the amount of just, if let's say your opponent ends on, let's say, an Electromite, well, you can Mind Control it and use its effect and then link it away. So it's it's pretty fucking good. I don't know how much it'll be sided, but it's something to definitely test siding in almost everything at 3 because the card's still really, really strong. Preparation Rites is back at 3. This is nice. Helps out a lot of those ritual decks like Vendra and Herald, etc. Sacrifice coming up to 3. It's interesting they chose to bump up Sacrifice rather than Scout because I would argue as really good as Scout is, important as Scout is for the archetype, Sacrifice is the more powerful card because it's really hard to stop. Well, granted, in the day and age of Cosmic Cyclone, it's a little bit easier to stop it from its float effect, but it's still a really powerful card, and it has some really, really powerful effects. But, I feel like I think if I was playing Cleese, I would much rather have 3 Scouts than 3 Sacrifice, but maybe I'm crazy. Bottomless and Torrential are both back up to 3, along with Ceasefire and Ajama Trio. In the case of Ajama Trio, it's not really that good anymore because you're giving your opponent Link fodder. Ceasefire is just played in mostly Chain Burn. It's not really a relevant card, but Bottomless, it's actually pretty cool to see it back up because we do have Trap Tricks for Flasia. And if I'm correct, and I think Magicians are going to become quite the best deck, having extra copies of Bottomless is really nice. And Torrential is also really good because since we did lose Dark Hole and Kaiju Slumber on the September list, now we have more board wipes, and it's kind of nice to have these up since we did lose Maxi. It does allow us to at least set up some interruption for our opponent's turn. But anyways, in summary, I think this pretty much means Spirals are going to be completely phased out of the format, but Magicians are still a really strong deck. It's just they will not be a tier 0 strong deck. The deck is still very playable without Joker and Double Iris, so you can kind of get a little creative with your deck building and it will be fine. And I just think this means we'll have a relatively wide open format. And I still think Magicians are one of the stronger decks of the format along with Trickstars, but Spirals won't be nearly the presence they were. So anyway, guys, about comes in the video today. Let me know what you guys think of the new TCG ban list down in the comment section down below. And as always, I thank you guys for watching. It's Warstorm, signing out.